Preston has a beautiful ability to go from the analytical to the metaphorical. This is going to play left brain to right brain for you brain nerds out there. But we need to be integrated back and forth. And so, Preston, you talked about the feelings. What was the phrase that you used? The feelings to the...
Yes, feelings and finances. There's feelings and finances, which equal flourishing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So feelings plus finances equal flourishing. So there's feelings in your finances. And then there's stories in your statements. And those stories inform your strategy.
Welcome to the Healthy Love and Money podcast. If you find money to be the number 1, 2, or even third largest source of stress in your relationship, then you're in the right place. Going beyond how to budget, invest, and do your taxes, we're going to explore financial intimacy. Discover how to talk with your partner about your shared financial life. Let's take the awkward and painful out of money conversations. Join me and hit follow to listen to weekly inspiring, healing, and motivating interviews with financial therapists, couples therapists, and financial planners, and so many more. Let's go on the journey of financial intimacy together. Today, it's my distinct honor to welcome a friend and colleague, Dr. Preston Cherry. Now, Preston, we go back a little ways now. I mean, we've been through leadership in the Financial Therapy Association. We've been on the speaker circuit, and, we've just chopped it up from time to time. But what I'm so excited about is you have this new incredible book out called Wealth in the Key of Life, Finding Your Financial Harmony. We're all about financial harmony here, especially between partners. So that's why I'm happy to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Ed. I appreciate you.
Man, so let's just take a deep breath and say, let's have some fun with this one.
Yeah, I agree. We're always chopping it up in the green room and all that. And by the way, I'm a big fan of yours. Not only we're friends, but I'm a big fan of yours. In the back, I got your book on my shelf. So big fan, my man.
Yes, awesome. So let's start off with this question. You're relatively newly married. How has getting married changed your view of navigating money with an intimate partner?
Yeah. I learned a lot from my parents, Ed. So we were just talking about fancy names on themes, right? And when you talk about financial socialization, right? Money talks, and it's just money talks in the home. And, I saw my parents talk about money out loud within themselves and to our family. Okay. And this is where I learned it. They just celebrated a wedding anniversary, 46 years.
Woo! Yeah. 46 years. That's legit.
46 years. And they're young too. Yeah. So my dad is 66 and my mother is 63 or 4 and I'm 45. So, they got started young, right? So that's a blessing. Great. And so that's where I learned it from because, they showed each other compassion with one another. Obviously they didn't come out of, their rooms or anything and just tell us all their business. But I was able to, my sister and I were able to visualize money conversations. I remember, and I'm getting to your question here in a minute, why, as far as marriage is concerned, as I remember them we recorded family meetings about, hey, my dad got laid off one time. Yeah. We still have the tapes. And, they had to go back. This is after they talked amongst each other. Okay. Right. And having that real conversation amongst spouses and coming out unified. Right. And having grace in one another. They've already done the difficult, kind of like a challenging conversation. And then they came out and talked to us. Wow. Right. And so with my wife and I, we've known each other 8 years and we got married last year, but we've been through a lot the last 8 years. Sure. We've had those challenging conversations. And one of the conversations about be able to be better communicators to one another, we started that in like year 2 or 3. It was a must, Ed. Yeah. And it was very challenging to get over early, but becoming better communicators. And now, fast forward, we're on our 8th year, 1 year of marriage. Yeah. Everybody can grow, every day on communication. Right. But because both of her parents have been married 46 years too.
Wow. Nice.
So we're equally yoked in that area. So we're a little blessed and lucky and fortunate that, we've had these long-term relationships with the parents. We've seen them talk, and then we came together and made communication a emphasis. And now, we're a lot better at it.
So can I press into that and ask, what was like a challenge point in communication, and what's something you did that you think really helped shift it?
Right. A willingness to understand.
Tell me more about that one, because that's a tough one.
It is. And so I love your book because it has a lot of frameworks in it. And I use one framework that I came up with, but it's agree to agree first. Ooh. Agree to agree. And that means you don't have to agree on perspective, but say, what is our goal? What is our outcome? What are we trying to reach here? Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. And if it's our next vacation, we want to have fun on our vacation. We want to be unrestricted on our next vacation. We want to so on and so forth. All right. It's how we do it. Is how much we're going to spend on shopping, or do we want to go on a destination, or a mix of so? How we're going to spend that time, right? So it could be a number of things. So I'm using travel for example.
Sure.
But the agreement is that we want this trip to be fulfilling, and we want to unplug, and we want to have it be a spark for ourselves. All right. So this is what we want together. Can we agree on that? Right. So that's the agree to agree. Now, how we haven't discussed yet.
Right. Because, I'm going to shift the stereotypes, right? I was going to go down the stereotype. Well, the woman's going to want to do all the shopping, and the man's going to want to lounge. Mm-hmm. But Preston, I've heard you give some keynotes talking about, some of your nice shopping expeditions. So let's just ham it up and say you're really wanting to shop as part of this fun vacation, and the wife's like, I just want to sit by the pool and do nothing.
Right.
Now, and maybe I'll just add, like, she has some financial anxiety. I'm making this up. This is not true for you guys, but she's worried that you're going to spend too much money shopping. How do you guys get through that?
Yeah. So the next part of those steps is first agree to agree, and then offer a welcoming environment for each other, a trusting environment. We're going to let's talk through perspectives without judging or getting into an argument or becoming toxic. Let's have this. It doesn't have to be necessarily a bed of roses. Let's not let it get into a deep negative energy between one another. So step one, agree to agree. Number, at a macro level. 2, set the table for a welcoming environment, understanding environment. And even if you're faith-based, faith as you define it, as I say, maybe kick it off with some prayer. If you're not in a heavy, maybe some meditation for a second, right? And then the third and fourth is listen to that person, the willingness to understand, what is your perspective on this? Why is it that you want to have an expedition of laying on the sand or whatever it may be? And so that's perspective number one. The second perspective is okay. On our examples, Preston, why you want to do this shopping this time? Why and to what effect? And then come back to, which is the fifth step, which is not necessarily compromising, but coming together. That's another C. That's actually, what is it? Old Beatles song, right? And Michael Jackson remake, come together right now, right?
Yes,
so,
right.
All right, right. So it's not necessarily compromising. It's coming together. It's coming together to that first macro step. Is how are we going to use the steps in the middle to come together, right? And accomplish what we want to accomplish.
I love that. The word combination I love using is financial intimacy. Mm-hmm. And this sounds exactly like it. And what I like that you're laying out is it's a process and it's a sequence of steps. And if you don't have that agree to agree, everything else is going to be hard to get through. And if you don't create a welcoming environment, forget it.
Well, yeah, because as soon as you enter into the conversation, then it could go left or right because there was no boundary established. There was no, there was nothing established to not let it go into areas that keep folks from talking, which is, oh, you know, he's going to bring that up for us. She's going to bring that up. Right. And so if you establish some sort of welcome environment and say, you know what, let's not go there. Let's, then that goes back to that agree to agree point. Let's stay in the pocket.
Yeah. I think that brings up a really important point around the boundaries is, you know, couples as they go along, they get all this relational history and money history. And man, sometimes they can pull the kitchen sink out and be like, well, oh yeah, that's that time when you did all that over shopping and over that spending. And it's like, yep, so you're just going to do that right again. That's not going to make you want to talk about why you're wanting to shop on the vacation this time around.
No. And it doesn't encourage future conversations either. It's like, oh, we doing this again? You know? It sounds familiar, right? People listen, you just laughed and other people laughed. They were like, oh, that's the line right there.
That is the line. Well, it doesn't encourage future conversations, right? So like couples come to us and they're like, they're shut down and they're like, I don't get why they won't talk to me. And then I watch how they come at their partner and I'm like, I wouldn't want to talk to you either. Now I don't say this to their face.
Right.
With all love and respect, listeners and current clients, if you're listening, I guess I just said it to your face, but
right. It's like to you said, it's like the way you deliver it, because you've been doing it a long time, right? That is the question deep down, but the question would be, how would you feel coming to the table with, you know, a preconceived conception that there's going to be a toxic conversation? How would you feel about that? How do you feel about that? Right. And then now they get to speak about it. Right. But what you're really asking is like, you know, do you want to talk in a toxic environment because of the line of, oh, so we doing that again?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's spot on. And it's such a dangerous trap that so many couples get stuck in because they get those early financial conflicts in their marriage and they hold the resentment, the hurt, the contempt builds up. And they have a hard time finding their way back to that initial love and compassion and curiosity. So I'm curious about, how do couples work through the inevitable disappointments and misunderstandings? How do they repair from that?
Yeah. Well, it depends on if you're, and now it sounds like I'm on Jada on the Red Table Talks or something like that.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's bring that energy.
You're giving us advice. Well, the difference is because it is that when you and I are talking, you know, we're not sugarcoating the fact that this is not, you know, easy or, you know, it's just this. You're going to find harmony every time that you speak, right? and you may hear that comment as like, "Are we doing this again?" You're like, "No, not this time." Right. So it's a different way to handle it because if we're not willing, both parties are not willing to have boundaries and learn from our previous conversations and our previous experiences, then when that line comes up, are we doing this again? Or remember when you did this? Or that hopefully with a framework, with a guidepost, all right, then you hear that if somebody may not be triggered as much.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, you know, we did this last time. How about we're still talking about this trip? So let's stay in the pocket. We've already done all that. That doesn't influence now. Right. And so we can say, let's take a pause for a second and just let's stay here because we want to have a good trip. Right. And so that's because we've learned. Right. Because we learned. So it doesn't mean that, you know, the conversation may not get a little, you know, jerky a little bit. It does mean that we won't be as triggered and that we can work through.
Yeah. I think that the thing that I'm landing on is that capacity to learn, to get curious. Like, how can I approach this conversation differently? Not how can I get them to approach it differently, but how can I show up differently and maybe evoke a different response this time?
Mm-hmm. Right. And even like a breath, you about to take a breath, go get a glass of water or something like that. It'll be like, let's take a break. You know, I'm gonna go to the bathroom and get some water, you know, and then come back together, coming together, right? Yeah. Come back and be like, all right, let's talk about this trip some more. In that framework, if you're living within that, in that sphere, then you have a better probability of having a healthy conversation. And we'll talk about later how, there's feelings and finances. So there's feelings and finances, and there's stories in your statements, and your statements inform your strategy, right? Your financial strategy. So with this conversation, what are we talking about in this example that we keep bringing up? We're still talking about the trip. All right. So yes, it's about well-being of the trip, that outcome, but also our conversation that we're having as a couple is going to affect the bottom line of how much this trip is going to cost.
Oh, all right, listeners, there's a couple things I want you to know that I think I know about Preston. He's a poet, right? I learned this when you were on the Most Hated podcast, that you've written lyrics for music. And I want to come back and just plug your book while we're at this point in the conversation, and is Wealth in the Key of Life. And when y'all pull this book up on Amazon and buy a copy, what you're going to see are notes of music scripted onto the cover, because Preston has a beautiful ability to go from the analytical to the metaphorical. This is going to play left brain to right brain for you brain nerds out there. But we need to be integrated back and forth. And so, Preston, you talked about the feelings. What was the phrase that you used? The feelings to the...
Yes, feelings and finances. There's feelings and finances, which equal flourishing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So feelings plus finances equal flourishing. So there's feelings in your finances. And then there's stories in your statements. And those stories inform your strategy.
Man, y'all can just stop now. Just sit with that. Go, sit in your quiet spot, journal on that.
Yeah. Beautiful. I mean, when we talk about stories, what we're talking about is a reoccurring in this real life example that we're using is steps 3 and 4 in the couples dynamic is that person's perspective is a story. Mm-hmm. Then your other spouse, the other spouse, their perspective is a story. Right. All right. And we're coming together how we feel about that. Now that trip is either going to, it's either going to cost, 10,000 or 30,000 or whatever it is. It can be
whatever your numbers are.
Whatever the numbers are. It can be 300 to 1,000, so whatever the number is according to your household. So those stories are definitely, that's going to inform the strategy and how you go about funding and how about you go about distributing income or distributing sources outside of your statements in order to fund that vacation. So it's both feelings and finances to affect your flourishing, which is well-being. And this is one example. It could be a host of it, but it's one example of travel. All right. It could be the different perspectives of how you're going to fund your child's college education. All right. Is it going to be 0%, 50%, or 100%?
Right. Public school, private school.
All of that. Swap out any financial topic that you want.
Yeah. The framework is the same.
The framework is the same, and you must start with the conversations about aligning your life and money. Your life and money alignment gives your money assignments. Life and money alignment gives your money assignments. So when we're talking about this framework in this travel example, far as couples are concerned, you're going through the process of aligning what you want out of life with your money, so you can then give your money assignment at that point.
Yeah, Preston. So my wife and I crossed a big financial bridge this past summer. We went to France for a month. We went to see the Olympics. We went to see the tour. And for both of us, we spent way more money than we ever have on vacation. And by and large, it was a pretty good experience. But, I didn't have your great framework to think through it. But there was a lot of working through feelings and talking about feelings and the stories about what was coming up and what does this mean to us and how are we going through it and how is it alignment, like fulfilling our values of travel. And, I think one of my stories is I grew up in a family where we did road trips for family vacations by and large. And so my first story is, man, you don't travel international. And so I had to work through that story for myself to be able to say, well, that was true for my family in their financial situation, but it's not the same. And so how do you see that showing up where people are kind of comparing what they did see in their families to what they're able to do now?
Yeah. You said a couple of things there were on fire, right? Which is giving folks permission to prosper. All right.
Oh, that's a phrase, right? That's my favorite phrase right there. Preston, can you actually just tell me from the outside in, Ed, you have permission to prosper?
You got permission to prosper, right? And that's what the book is full of. The book is full of permissions. Permissions to prosper within oneself and in your household, because you don't owe an explanation of your money or justification to your money in your life to anyone. All right.
Wait. Say that part again, because my brain needs to hear that on repeat.
Yes. You do not need to justify your life and money to others. You don't owe anybody explanation either, right? And so this is whether it be internal boundaries, beliefs, right, have either a boundary, a barrier, or a boost to your life and money journey. All right. And investigating those is going to release yourself and help you explore the permissions within oneself to live the life that you value most in your ideal life. And without having to justify everything, if you are doing your financial plan, if you're working your financial plan, then you have your personhood, your preferences, your purpose, all goes into the plan, right? And the only people that you owe accountability to is yourself in the mirror, your spouse, your children, and faith as you define it, your higher power. Other than that, right? Or even the financial advisor that you're partnered with, because you chose to collaborate with that person because it is your financial journey. Right. Other than that, no. And if somebody wants to spend on an experience or whatever, it can even be a material item that's increasing your quality of life. All right. And what I heard you say, and a lot of folks say this, is like, man, and this is just it could be, because the dollar is high, man. It could be 10,000, it could be 20,000, it could be 30,000. Did we just spend that on a family trip? Or if it's within your budget and you say $1,000, whatever the amount, and it seems high to you. All right. It's through the perspective of the person. If it seems high to you, even $1,000, you'd be like, man, we could have done that for free, or we could have done this, or we could have done that. All right. Is that thought process being a barrier, a boost, or a boundary? If it's a barrier to what you want to do that's going to increase your well-being, because you've already stated that, it's like, we want to have a good trip and this is how we want to do it, and we have the resources to do it. All right. Is your thought process being a barrier to you? Because we need to help you transform that to a boost.
Yeah.
Right. So when you talk about what things have always been done in the past, I'll give you a quick example, because you said about family trips. We took family trips too. We drove everywhere. That's just what it was. Right.
Yeah.
And my dad actually made fun of me one time because I said, "Pops, I'm gonna drive down to Houston. I'm in Wisconsin now. I'm going to drive down to Houston." Now, ironically, I am going to drive down to Houston for the holiday because we got to stop through Kansas City and see my grandparents, and we'll go down to Houston. But before that, we're flying. But this one time, I said, "Yeah, we're going to drive, Pop," and he said, "What kind of stupid stuff is that?" He said, he told me straight up, man. And he said, "We drove everywhere because we had to." He said, he was pocket watching my stuff, right? He was like, "You got money. What are you doing?" He said, "If I had it," you're talking about time, right? Quality of life, well-being, all that. He said, "There's a time to drive and there's a time to not." And he used the F word. He was like, "Man, you a fool." Right? He said, "Get on the plane." and fly yourself down here ready to get on a car. He said, we did it because we had to.
Right.
So just because it was done a certain way, all right. And then that carried over into my mindset sometimes before I got comfortable with a lot of travel, which was, well, let's just drive. It was a default. But was that a barrier? Was that mindset to a barrier to my well-being? Yes.
Yeah. You know what? You bring up something that's so important, and this circles right back around, is you don't owe an explanation to anybody. I think that's what I heard you said. I hope I'm not misrepresenting it.
No, you're not.
And what I've noticed has been really interesting is before the trip, and even after the trip, when I talk about it, how many qualifiers I put in there. Well, my wife's a dentist. Well, we paid off a bunch of debt, so we had money we could save. Right? Even now I'm announcing it here, but for the purpose, these are the things that would come out of my mouth without me even thinking twice about it. And I'm just trying to make it okay. And what I think I'm doing is I'm trying to make it okay in their mind that I just went on this trip. But that's actually me just trying to justify and make it okay. And I'm trying to make really what it's about is my insecurity. And
absolutely.
And being worried about how you're going to judge me for something I just did.
Right. Because yes, it's internal barrier and external when you were doing those justifications, right?
Yeah.
It's, what are these folks, what are they going to say? What is their rebuttal? And then also your internal is like, okay, did we just do that? Why, should we have, and all this, right? This is assuming that you have the resources and you're doing your plan, and you already budgeted it, you already budgeted this money and all that, right? And it's like, did we just do that? So it's a sense of first of all, it's like, okay, have some gratitude.
Yeah.
Affirm yourself. We worked hard. We're fortunate. Blessed.
We've been thoughtful. All that. We've been putting in the work to get to this point. This is 18 years into marriage.
All of that. So you deserve. You are worthy. You are worthy of this trip. And the way that you're going to experience it. That Dr. King famously said it was your own somebodiness, as he eloquently said, right? So your own somebodiness. So are you that conversation with yourself is a worthiness conversation. It's self-worth. Should we? Did we have to? And all that. That's internal. And then, so that's internal justification. Then you got external justification. It's like, oh, okay, I wonder what Suli and Sal and Joe is going to say about, this.
About the fact that Combs took a month off and went to France. Jeez Louise, who the hell do they think they are?
Right. And then they may say, in our household, they may think you bougie, right?
Yes. Well, and what's funny is because of the story in my head is all focused on the judgments people are going to give.
Right.
And what I actually heard more of the time, especially from people that I care about, was like, that's awesome. We support you. And it inspires us.
Right.
And I was like, wait, you talking to me? So this money stuff gets real deep in our psyche, doesn't it?
It really does. It really does. And, those justifications, when we talk about feelings plus finances is flourishing, and then permission to prosper, whatever that means to you, right? And you've already decided, you've already done the work. You've already done the work that you and your household want to be in any life domain that you want to invest in. Yeah. It could be material. It could be experiential. It could be spiritual. It could be charitable. It could be so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Health, all these domains. You've already done the work to investigate hopefully you have the how, why, when, where, and such. And then now you have this unit of well-being, this happiness you've discovered. And now you get to purchase that. I always say all the time is wealth and well-being are different. And I know people like to mix it, but wealth is dollars and well-being is domains. And you use your dollars to invest into your well-being domains. And this is why if you've done the work to investigate what brings you well-being in life, then you can buy more units of it. And that's called happiness, quote unquote, right? You can buy more units of well-being, right? And that's what I'm saying, that you don't owe anybody any explanation of that, except for those folks that we talked about, yourself, your faith, your family, and if you have a professional. Those are just our accountability.
I want to ask you a question, because you're a person that, from what I understand, has gone on a pretty profound and searching journey around the world religions, and where you landed. And I'm less interested specifically what you believe, but what you see when people, because there's a lot of folks out there that have their religious tradition, whatever it happens to be. I don't know how to say this, Preston.
Hey, come on with it, Ed. We're keeping it real for folks.
It drives them into poverty.
Mm.
And they think it's in service of glorifying God, the divine, whatever.
Yep.
And so there's real mixed messages in the religious communities about whether wealth is okay to have or not okay to have. And I was talking to someone else very recently, and they were talking about how their dad got swept up in the Jesus movement, gave up a good career, ended up living in poverty and taking his family through very tough financial times. And that's not the only story I've heard. I've heard this many times.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know what to do with all that sometimes, Preston. I'm curious about how you think about it.
Yeah. That's why, as you is faith as you define it. And you also have, again, about the feelings of finance, don't mean to beat a dead horse there, but it is, because these are deep rooted feelings, when you talk about faith and belief systems. Mm-hmm. And just like faith, when you talk about belief can go in a whole different type of ways as well. It can be non-religious. I believe that you shouldn't fund your kids 100% because you're going to spoil them around. I believe, right? Which hey, I haven't. Yeah, there's a whole episode on that one.
There's a whole episode. That's a whole series, not an episode. That's a series. Yes,
right. I just did one about it a couple weeks ago.
Shout out to it. Where can they find that then?
Yes, at the Life Money Balance podcast. It's called "Is Gen X Ruining Their Finances to Support Their Adult Children?" That's the episode. It went viral, actually. So Life Money Balance podcast.
Let's hyperlink it.
Yeah. So these are beliefs, right? And so let's get back to your point about faith. It's a deeper belief. It is so deeply rooted into our spirit and our existence, for those that choose to, that want to believe, right? That said, all right, you mentioned the faith books, particularly the Hebrew faiths, the 3 of them, right? I want folks to Google how many times abundance and prosperity is in those books. And they are. It's fully stated, right? Yeah. So it goes back to worthiness and what your higher power is assigning to you. When folks say, you're a money worshiper or money is evil. No, what that is the priority of worship. Okay. Money is not evil. It is the worship of evil. All right. Because living abundantly and living prosperous is due to you if you are living in the way that your faith is trying to prescribe you to do, right? And to the best of your ability, because there's no perfect way to follow a faith, right? But if you, what the scriptures are saying is that if you have your order of operations somewhat in order, and you're not worshiping the power of money, and making it a god, so to speak, then if you're not doing that, then being prosperous, living a purposeful life and within the faith, then prosperity and abundance is due to you within that framework. Yeah. That's what that's saying. And then number 2, I would say, well, we all have a version of this story, which is, persons in the middle of the ocean, they're hugging the life raft, it's about to drown. Yeah. It's like, God's going to save me. God's going to save me. And then a lifeboat comes around, right? And then the raft comes around, and then the person says, "No, do you want this raft?" No, God's going to save me. And then he ends up drowning and gets up to God and says, "I thought you were going to save me." He was like, "I did, fool. I sent you a raft." Sent you a raft and all that, right? Yeah. So what does that story have to do with our conversation? It says that if you're in a financial struggle or a challenge or have maybe perhaps a trauma, or you're triumphant, money doesn't always have to be sad. You're in a triumphant sense, right? and you want to work with a partner. It's like, okay, I just don't know where my money is going. I'm making an abundance of it, but I don't know where it's going. So I need more confidence, security. What that's saying is, it's like, sometimes you may put your tithing or your zakat or whatever that phrase is for you on the side for a second, because your higher power sent you a resource in order to get your finances in order. All right. And so there's the wrath. Grab a hold of it for a second. There's grace in the scriptures. All right. And then once you get back in order, all right, wherever you are on your journey, my question is, do you think that God, as you define it, sent you here because you prayed on it? All right, to work on your finances. And number two, do you think that you'll be able to contribute greater to your faith journey once you have more financial health? And then pause.
That pause piece is challenging for folks, isn't it?
It is. It is. But you're allowing folks, so you're not judging where they are or their beliefs. You're not telling them how to believe. You're not telling them anything. Right. You are helping them get to where they want to go, where they've already stated, right? And trying to unlock a better understanding of this particular domain in their life, their spiritual domain, but that integrates with everything else, with your finances and every other life domain that is. All right. So they've already stated that they want to have more confidence and clarity in their finances now and later. They've already stated that what their aspirational life is. They've already stated what their ideal life is. And here they've already stated a value system as well. All right. How do we help folks address and unpack this particular domain and how it integrates everywhere else so they can find a better understanding themselves? We just need to set up the stage and also ask the question, be compassionate about learning what their perspective is so we can help them where they've already said they want to go.
The thing that stands out to me, Preston, as we're wrapping up this conversation for today is, if you're trying to work with someone trying to get help on how to go forward with your money, it sounds like they better be pretty good listeners and pretty good questioners.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you might need a little advice and guidance, but what you really need is someone to listen to you and to ask you good questions to get you thinking about where you want to go and to help you get unstuck. Is that part of what you're saying?
Absolutely. And having a conversation is a two-way street. So I like what you said there about listening, but also asking good questions, and then knowing, having the skill set or wherewithal or the awareness of a sense of self in order to have a conversation with someone. All right. Because, remember as a teenager, we had those phones with the long cords in the wall, we have cell phones now with a long cord so you can get in the other room. Right.
Yeah.
And you're on the phone, and if it was late at night and probably 1 a.m, you're maybe talking to your best friend or something like that. And then that one person would be talking and the other person would be silent. And you don't know if that person was asleep or whatever. So were they listening or is there a lack of engagement? And this is why I always say, no, you shouldn't come to the table and just overbearing and be a talker and all this other stuff. I mean, that's selfish. All right. But do have a conversation, and a conversation is not unilateral. So one person has to come to the table with a willingness to understand someone, a willingness to listen. And that entails taking it all in, but also offering, when it's necessary to say, all right, let's have a conversation so the conversations can continue to help encourage someone. People like to be affirmed, oh yeah, you were listening.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So it's part of a conversation, repeating back and all this other stuff in order for it to be a healthy conversation. And then, step out. If you're the individual doing the most of the listening, step out so then they can pick back up. You're just helping the conversation progress to where that person wants to go.
That's incredible. Preston, thank you for your time. I'm so grateful for the journey through life that you're taking, that our paths have crossed. I know we have many more cross points ahead of us. Final shout out for your book, Wealth in the Key of Life, Finding Your Financial Harmony. Available on Amazon, obviously, probably all the other places too. But if people wanted to connect with you, where else can they find you and the work you're doing in the world?
I appreciate you, Ed. And just same to you, my friend. Likewise, I'm glad we're going through the journey together. Dr. Preston Cherry. So that's Dr. Preston Cherry on all the socials. And then Life Money Balance podcast is on YouTube and all the other, Spotify, Apple, and then Concurrent FP if people are interested in services. But that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Thank you for your time and generosity today.
Thank you, Ed.
I invite you now to stop for 5 or 10 minutes and reflect on what you just heard. Maybe even journal about it. Give yourself the time to consider what you just heard and what it means to you. By giving yourself the time to reflect and integrate what you just heard, it will help you along your journey of learning, healing, and growing towards financial intimacy in your life. Please like and follow this podcast and share with someone that would benefit from being on the journey of financial intimacy. Wishing you healthy love and money, Ed.